Hi guys, it's Matt here from Max on UK, and in this tutorial we are going to be looking at creating an exhibition stand. Now, it's something that I've had requested a few times, but it's a really interesting thing to try and do a tutorial on, because basically you wouldn't really design a tutorial stand, say straight into Cinema 4D. Normally there would be some form of design that you would be working towards. Someone would have sketched it, someone would have come up with some ideas, and you'd be using the space that you'd been allocated in wherever it is that you would be having your exhibition in. However, nonetheless, I'm not one to try and shy away from a challenge. So what I have done is I have put together some, sort of key things that hopefully will make life easy for you and give you some ideas on how to produce some form of exhibition stand. I've taken it from a few examples of things that I have seen, so hopefully you'll be able to take away some tips and some tricks in order to be able to put together an exhibition stand that is going to help you. Okay, so to start with, we need to define the size that our exhibition stand is going to be. And the easiest thing for me to do is to use a cube. Now, I'm working in centimetres, so at the moment this is 2 metres by 2 metres by 2 metres. So that might be a very small exhibition stand for you, it's up to you. I'm going to give myself a little bit of extra room, so I'm going to say something like 4 metres. And then by height, I'm going to go by 3 metres, because maybe there's going to be some lighting or something like that. And then in my Z space, I'm going to go for 6 metres. Okay, so I want a nice big space to work with. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be doing, that's how I'm going to be working. And then I'm going to make sure that my cube is 150 centimetres above, okay, so that I know that my bottom of my cube is going to be working there. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my cube, I am going to add separate surfaces, and then I'm going to make it editable. And this means that I now know that I have my 6 separate things. I do know how many sides there are on a cube, honestly. And then I'm going to label them. So floor or floor, and then the up arrow to quickly rename without having to click. And then I'm going to call that back, and I'm going to call that right, and I'm going to call that front, and I'm going to call that left. Okay, so it just gives me some form of reference depending on what it is I'm going to end up creating. Okay, so for the moment I am going to hide all of those. Okay, and I just need to know that this is what I'm going to be working in. Don't want to hide the top one. Okay, I'm going to keep the floor there because that's going to be my floor space. So anything I need to work within that. And then I can, every now and again, if I need to, I can put the backboard on or put the right side on, just to make sure that what I'm doing is going to fit into that. So that's my floor space, okay? That's what I'm going to be working towards. And say there might be different ways of producing some things. I mean, it might be a simple case that you've got left, front and back, and that's your exhibition space, okay? You've got boards in there, and you can add a variety of things. So, I mean, it might be that simple. So let's start here, okay? In Cinema 4D, there's a vast array of textures and things that we can use. So I'm just going to have a look in my content browser, and I'm going to search for, I always put an S in it. It's not ParQuest, parquet flooring. Let's have a quick nose at those. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So just double click that. And then I'm going to drag and drop it to my floor texture. Okay, that's a tad huge. Change it to cubic from the tag, so just make sure that your tag is selected. Go to projection from UV mapping and change it to cubic. Okay, that's a bit better, but I think I want to rotate it. So if I just, no, not that way. There we go. Okay, so 90 degrees. And that will get me my flooring. I just want to go back to my tag and tick seamless and just do a quick render, and that gives me a nice floor. Okay, so maybe I've got some laminate down or something like that. It's entirely up to you. And then I'm going to create a new texture. Sometimes they are, blue or things like that. So maybe I'm going to create myself a bluish texture. Okay, and I'm going to lower that reflection down. Okay, the general reflection brightness, but I may add a Beckman in there, and I'm going to really lower its reflection strength, but I'm going to up its bump quite a lot. Okay, so it's very rough, but I'm going to lower its bump strength, its specular strength, okay, because I really don't want it to be very shiny, and I don't want it to really have any reflection, or barely any, okay. And that I'm going to use on my walls, okay. So that's easy. So quite quickly I've got myself, you know, a space and some stands, okay, some boards perhaps that you're going to be using, and then just do a quick render. Oh, helps if I unhide those, doesn't it? Okay, so maybe that's your board, maybe that's your area that you're going to start pinning some stuff to. Okay, so again, it's entirely up to you, you know, how you're going to plan this and things like that. But maybe that's a space you can, you know, you can model quickly some posters. You know, there's loads of stuff in the content browser when it comes to tables and chairs, okay, that you can add in. You know, depending on which version of Cinema 4D you've got. If not, there'll be plenty of models and things that you can download to give you some form of basic thing. But one of the ones I'm going to go towards is a little bit more of the complicated sort of thing, so I'm just going to hide those. So maybe some of the more bespoke, more interesting things that people can create. So, where to begin? I'm going to go for something that looks relatively curvy. So, easy to start is a rectangle. Okay, and I'm going to change the plane that that is on. So it's facing that way, which is cool. Okay, and I'm going to move it further back, and to make sure it's at the back, I'm going to make sure it's at -200. Just going to change that to world, so I know I'm dealing with world coordinates. Okay, so it's currently, how high do I want it? So if I say 300 centimeters, and then I'm going to move it up, so that I know it definitely meets that, and that would need to be 150. Again, you know, how exact you make it is up to you, and that we know is 6 wide. Okay, that's interesting. So then I'm going to add some rounding, and that's going to get me some nice curvature, and I might just increase that to say 100, so that we've got that is 1 meter curved all the way round. Okay. Then I'm going to make that editable, and then I'm going to delete those lower points because I don't want those anymore. Okay, then I'm going to select those two, and I'm going to ensure that they are back down at 0. And that gives me some form of curvature to start with. Okay, what I'm then going to do is I'm going to create a second copy of that, which I am going to shrink. Okay, and that's going to give me a nice archway. So, same again, I'm going to use your side views, make sure you know what you're doing, and you can see what you're doing rather, and you can see that that's going to give you a nice curvature. Okay, what I might do to both of those is just untick close spline. I'm going to see where they start and finish. Okay, so let's have a look at that one. So if I select that point, and then I can right click, and you can set first point, which means it will go around that way, and I'm going to do the same to that one. Set first point, there we go. I'm going to go back to those 2 points and make sure they are both at 0. And then I'm going to select both of those, and I'm going to see if I can use any of my spline stuff here. What do I want to do? Do I want to union them? No. What I might do is right click and then connect and delete. Okay, and then that gives me one spline. I can select those two, and then I can join the two together. So connect and delete has taken the two splines that I had, and I am now left with one, which I can then right click the 2 points and join together. Okay, which I'm going to adjust those spline shapes for. Make those back. Can I right click? I'm going to go hard interpolation for those two. Okay, and then with that spline I can click close spline and it will finish those two. Select those two, right click, and hard interpolation again will make sure that there is a nice straight line between those. If I just hide that floor, you can see that there is a nice straight line between, none of that curvature. Okay, and that gives me, you know, that nice sort of look. So the gap between those two is 25 centimeters, which isn't bad. That's going to be a nice big arch all the way around. Okay, the gap between those is a little bit bigger, but that's obviously because it's, you know, at an angle as well. So just unhide that again, and then I'm going to use an extrude. Okay, so I'm going to put my rectangle, or not no longer a rectangle, but my spline shape in my extrude. Okay, at the moment it's shifting 20 centimeters that way, which is not what I want. What would be really good is to come this way a little bit, so say 1 meter. Okay, and that gives me an archway that I can look at. Maybe I want 150. Okay, and that gives me a nice archway that, you know, people can be looking in, people can be, you know, standing under. We can have exhibition stands or displays and things like that in the background. Okay, and we'll come back to the background in a minute. Okay, depending on, you know, what it is that we want to do. So there we go. There is a nice little archway I've got going on there. Now some of these archways have little portholes and little windows and things like that. So easiest thing to do, I would find, is to put this in a bool. So if I go up here and a bool takes one thing away from another. Okay, I've got a tutorial on what they do. So if I just hold down the Alt button, okay, it puts it straight in the bool, and then maybe I can decide what it is that I want, you know, my window to be. So I could go for anything from a cylinder, perhaps, and then I shall just get that working that way. I'm just going to line that up a bit so it's there. So say 125. So it's nice. Ooh. What did I do? Okay, 125. There we go. And say 150 high. And then what I can do is I can expand its height out so it goes straight through, and then I can add it into the bool. Now, as you can see, that's the wrong way around, so I've made a nice little sort of Christmas cracker type thing. Swap them around, and there we go. I've got that nice sort of hole. You know, people can look through, people can look in. It gives you some form of, you know, backdrop, as it were, and a nice sort of shelter. Not that most exhibition stands like this are going to be outside, but nonetheless. So there we go. That gives me, you know, a nice sort of base to start with. And then maybe I'm going to have some worktops, sort of like some counter spaces where people can be coming and milling around and people can talk to each other. So again, I'm just going to start with a cube. Okay, so 2 meters high is a bit big, so I'm just going to go for, let's do it on the object. So if we go for 1, okay, that's cool, and then I'm just going to make sure that that is 50 high. 2 meters wide is again a little bit crazy, so let's say something like sort of 50 centimeters. You know, it's not going to be, you know, no one's going to be doing any lots of work on it. It's going to be sort of standing around chatting to people. You might have some examples, maybe you've got some laptops on it or something like that. Okay, and then maybe we've got 2 meters wide, okay, which is maybe a bit too small, so I might make that 3. Okay, so you're going to wonder what on earth I'm going to do with that, but I'm going to use a deformer to bend that round. So I'm just going to create myself a bend deformer, okay, and then I'm going to put it inside the cube, and then I'm going to position it where I think it's going to be most useful. So it needs to be around that sort of area. There is a fit to parent thing, but it's not the right way round for me yet. So what I want to do is just rotate that 90 degrees, okay, and then what I can do, if you'll have a, you know, sort of bear with me, I can rotate it 90 degrees. Obviously at the moment it's not bending as much as I'd like it to. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to set that to 90 degrees, and then I'm going to set that to 180 so that it's not bending anywhere else outside of that area. And then with my cube dimensions, okay, looking at the z-axis, because that's where it's bending across, I need to increase my segments. And so I'm going to increase that quite a bit, so increase that to 50, and that will give a nice smooth curvature. Now the bend is obviously going way further than I want it to, so what I want to do is I want to keep its y-axis length so that I know that this is not going any further than 3 meters. Okay, so that is a 3 meter length as it works its way around. Now you can continue to use it like that, so maybe I can position it that way, you know, so that it is, you know, if I look down on my plan, it's meeting the very front of my floor plan, and I've got a nice curved angle to come and meet people and chat to them and do that sort of thing. Okay, or perhaps if I wanted, I could shrink that cube, and then we've got a bend in the middle, okay, but we've got a flat plane either way. So it's entirely up to you. And then I'm just going to adjust my positions to make sure that it's nice and flat and I'm not going over my, you know, floor plan, and no one's going to charge me any extra for my design. Okay, but it's quite simple. That was quite easy. You could add fillet again. You may want to shrink that down so that you've got some curvature without there being too much. So maybe 1 degree is absolutely, you know, 1 centimeter curvature radius is absolutely fine. Okay, again, you'll have some form of design, hopefully, that will allow you to think about how you want to put this together. Okay, cool. And then what I can do to make life really, really easy is I can put this in a symmetry. So I'm going to create a symmetry object. Okay, boom, and then I'm going to put my cube straight into it. Okay, so that wasn't quite where I wanted it to be symmetrical. Again, you could have more of them, maybe you could have 4 of them, and then they could work all the way around. So you could have another symmetry object in there, and maybe it could meet your barrier. So I'll tell you what, let's try seeing what that would look like just out of curiosity. So I'm going to create another symmetry object, only this symmetry object I'm going to change to the YX plane, or XY plane, and there we go, you've got 4 if you particularly wanted to. You've got a nice barrier there, you can see all the way through, maybe you've got people coming in all the way around. Who knows, maybe you could then move your extrude into the middle, and you've got something that looks like that. So again, you know, there are various different ways that you can play with it, but I'm going to just put that back over there, and then I'm going to put my cube into the second symmetry and get rid of that, so that I've got my worktop sort of barriers there going on. Okay, so that gives me something quite nice to be able to sort of stand and chat to people, and maybe I've got some chairs, maybe I've got some laptops or something on here where people can come and talk and see what we're doing. I can use that, it's not a problem. Maybe I want to add a little bit more detail to these things, and that's relatively easy to do, so I'm going to make my cube editable. Okay, and then I'm going to use my polygon tool, and on my cube, okay, you can see that we've got that, what it looks like before it's bent. So if I just turn the bend off so I can see what I'm doing, select all of my polygons, and then I'm going to give myself a little bit of a border. So to do that, I'm going to use an extrude inner, so M and W, and I'm going to select that, and that gives me a bit of a border. And then M and T will just extrude inner a bit, or extrude backwards. And then if I turn the bend on, okay, you can see we've got that sort of lip and barrier there. And because I've got it symmetrical, it works both sides, which is really easy for me to muster. You might want to do it on the inside as well. Again, it's entirely up to you. So what about some form of, you know, frontage, maybe some form of display? There's a few things we can do. I've seen some stuff that does some really big archways, or maybe has a table in front. Maybe you've just got a border. Okay, so you've got a way of getting in and out, which is the sides, and then perhaps you want some form of border. And to be honest, you could do that with a cube if you particularly wanted to. Again, just make sure it meets the front. Okay, so maybe it's 100 centimeters forward, although perhaps I'm going to need to change that cube. It's quite thick for the moment, isn't it? So maybe I only want it 1 meter high, so let's just change that, and then that's going to need to be, oh no, wrong way. So there we go, that's going to need to be 50, marvellous. And then I'm definitely going to need to change that thickness. So we made the other border 50, so again let's make that 50, and then we can stick that at 175. Okay, and there we've got a barrier or border or something that we can put together. Maybe we can make it thinner. You know, maybe you only want it to be 5 centimeters thick because it's going to be a board, and you can just marry all that up. And that's what that's going to be. That's going to be a nice flat border for you, or a poster or a frontage or something like that. You know, make sure that it doesn't clip over. You know, let's just do a quick render and see whether or not you've got some things going. Maybe you need to bring it in a bit so that you haven't got any clipping or any visible clipping, and that all starts to merge together quite nicely. You know, you can make that a little bit further back. Again, this is entirely up to you. I'm only hopefully giving you some form of ideas of the stuff that you can produce and how you can make stuff look interesting with what you're about to do. I've seen some stuff that has you know, maybe some archways going over the top depending on what you're trying to create. So what I might do, again, I'm going to create myself a cube. Okay, and then I'm going to make it 10 centimeters by 2 meters by 10 centimeters. So it's quite a long cube, and I'm just going to use my side views to adjust what it is that I'm doing. There we go. Make sure that it sort of meets the top. We haven't got any terrible, you know, too much clipping, so it's gone through, but that's enough for me because I know it's going to work. And then I'm going to add another bend, funnily enough, because I think it's the easiest way of getting that to work the way I want it to. So I'm going to make it a child of that, and then I'm going to make my life easy, and I'm going to click to parent, but then I'm going to shrink this dramatically so that it doesn't affect it too much. So that's 200, so I'm definitely going to need to make this cube bigger. So let's go for 400, for example. Ooh, maybe too much. Let's go for 3. And then I'm going to put that so it meets the top. Then with my bend, I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to add 90 degrees. And with my cube, I'm going to increase the number of segments in its y-axis this time. And you want a nice amount so that you're going to be able to have just a smooth curve. You're not going to see any of the lines. So if you whack that down too far, you'll be able to see those square lines. So make that 50, move that up, come out again. Let's have a look at the side. It's not going to meet the top. So I'm going to move the bend. There we go. That works well enough, doesn't it? So that's going to look okay. But obviously it doesn't meet my back. So I'm going to need to increase this, so maybe I was right with 4 meters to start with. Okay, but now it goes too far down. So I'm going to hold down 7 on my keyboard, because what 7 will allow me to do, with the cube selected, in object mode, hold down 7 and grab the green arrow, and then I can move this without moving the bend. If I was to not move 7 and I was to move this, I would move the entire thing up and down. However, holding down 7 allows me to move the position of the parent without moving the position of the child. So again, that's still not long enough. So 450, hold down 7, marry that up, and then there we go. We've got a little corner there. Maybe if I have a look at that, I can now move the whole thing over so that it meets the corner of that. You know, there we go. Okay, boom. Really easy. And to make life even easier, so I don't have to do another one, I'm going to put it into the Symmetry Object, which, as you can see, nobbles the other one. Hold down those two, Alt-G to put them into a group, so Alt-G to group, and there we go. We've got something that starts to build its way together. A few different ways of doing those sorts of things. So that gives us one. Maybe you want to add a second, I don't know. So, just Command drag, and I should create another one, and then I should move that out, and because I've got symmetry working, I know that I've got another copy coming the other way. Okay, relatively simple, easy to do. Okay, I'm creating some form of cage, it looks like. So what about the back? Maybe you've got some form of backdrop, some sort of interesting curvature, which we could use a spline for. So let's try that. So let's go for, F2 to give me the top view, and then I can use my spline pen and I can draw us something that's going to give us an interesting look. So it needs to start relatively thin because I don't want it to be any thicker than the circle that I've got here. So you can see that it's got, we've got this. So maybe I want it to be really thin backdrop, and I want it to have a nice curvature right in the middle. So I'm going to start, with a simple frontage. Okay, and then maybe as it gets to, say, about there, I want it to be curved. And then in the middle, I want it to be curved out like that. And then it's going to join its way back to about there. So it's relatively equal, and then pop its way to that. Now I'm going to fix all of these in a minute, so I'm just going to draw them and then press escape. And that gives me my rough shape. So now I can click close spline, which finishes off the gap. I can select those two, and I can use the scale tool to make sure that they are in the right sort of position, and I'm going to change their position to 200, sorry, that's the wrong one. In the world I want to say 285, so that they're back there, because these ones should be 285 that way, but I need to scale them first to 0, which means that they are now level, and I can make that minus 285. Then I can select those two, which gives me the back. I can scale them to 0, and they can be minus 200, so that I know that they are exactly flat. And then I can do, you can check where the positions of all of these are. So say 190 by 200, and that one can be minus 190 by minus 200. Okay, so it's really simple to kind of get this. And you say you've got tangent values as well, which you can look at. So you could marry those up to make sure that they are exact, or perhaps you could use a symmetry object. That needs to be smack bang in the middle, please. So I want that to be 5, 150, and I want that to be 0. There we go. And that gives me a nice curved thing. Then I will use an extrude NURBS, so I shall stick the spline in that, and then I shall look at my extrude. Obviously we don't want it going that way, we want it going up this time. There we go. Okay, so we've got, if I just make that 3, ooh, not 30,000, wow, that'd be an incredibly tall exhibition stand. Okay, so we've got a nice curvature working on in the background there. Or maybe you could go for something simple, or perhaps, that's an idea for your entire thing. If I just hide some of these things, let's hide the ball. This could be your exhibition stand, okay? And you've got a nice curved backdrop that maybe you can put a really big, nice picture on. You know, some designer would have an artwork for it, you'd get the right resolution, and then that'd be screen printed, and you've got some massive curved exhibition stand on the back there. That's an interesting idea. Okay, or perhaps, you know, you go back to your original and have a look at your ball. Okay, now how could we get rid of the curvature, the bits where it sticks up? We can use a variety of different things. You could use a ball, okay, so that it takes one away from the other. You could make it editable, you could hide it, okay. There are, you know, I've shown you how to use a ball here. You know, we could make it editable like we've done with this, and then you could knife and hide it. So there are a few different ways of doing it. I'm not sure I particularly like that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide that extrude, but it gives you an idea if you want a curved background, and then I'm just going to create a cube. Okay, I'm going to make this relatively simple. I'm going to show you something else. So that I want to be 1 meter by 3 meters by 1 meter. So it's a nice big cube to stand at the back. Okay, so that's going to be minus 150. Oh, I need to keep pressing enter, don't I? 150. Oh, it's not, it's ignoring me, isn't it? Okay, let's do it that way then. There we go. And then I shall increase its height so that it stands roughly where it needs to be in the middle, which is 150, but what I'm going to do actually is lower its height so it's not quite 300, so it's only, say, 280, and then I'm going to lower it down, and it clips below the floor a little bit, but that's not really much of an issue, and then it doesn't really clip at the top because it meets all of that. Okay, what I might do actually is just make that a tad bigger, so using that, how big do we want it? Say 150. There we go. And now what could we do? Sorry, excuse me. To get us our backdrop. So again, we could turn. You know, you've got some form of back that you could use like that. I'm going to use another form of extrude, and I'm going to use this time our rectangle that we made over here because I want it to fit perfectly. So I'm going to copy and paste that rectangle because I already know that the inside is the right shape. I'm going to look at one of my side views, go to points mode, and then I'm going to delete the points that I don't need, which is its outer ones. Okay, doop 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 doop. And now I have a perfect rectangle, or not a perfect rectangle, but a rectangle that is now the perfect shape for just that inner cone. And then, once again, an extrude NURBS, put that in there, make sure it's going to go the right way, which isn't that way, it's that way. And I only need it to do 1 centimetre to work as a back for that. And there we have quite quickly our setup for an interesting exhibition stand. Now, I'm going to delete the blue, don't need it. I'm going to make this all very nice and white. Okay, so it's one of the easiest things to add. So there we go. If I just minimize all of those, and then I'm going to add my white texture to one of them, and then I'm going to command or control drag to each of the other elements. And boom, there we go. It's nice and bright and white, an interesting exhibition stand there. You know, nice and clean, nice and crisp. But what about textures and other things, I hear you say? So let's have a look at adding some other textures to it. So I'm going to add some nice textures to it that I have already. So I'm going to add some Cinema 4D logos and some Maxon logos to our stuff. So create a new material, and then under the texture I'm going to browse to my hard drive, and then exhibition stand, and I'm going to load in the Maxon Cinema 4D logo. Boom. Okay, yes, add it to the path. Okay, which gives me that, and it gives me some reflectance if I want it, which I shall just turn off. Now I can drag and drop it to a variety of things, so let's have a look at that cube maybe. So let's drag and drop it to that, and it fits. Okay, doesn't fit exactly, and if I render, you can see that I've got the logo on the back as well, so I can turn off both and I can put it to front only. And I can do a variety of different things, but if you look, I do have, I believe, the logo stretched along the top, which is also no fun for me whatsoever. So looking at my texture, okay, this is one way of doing it. I can see that it is 1077 by 292. Okay, so remember that, 1077 by 292. And then on my coordinates for this, I can make it that right size. So its Y was 292, because that's how high it was, and its X was, no, Z, sorry, for the blue, was 1077. Okay, so that means that it should be the right sort of size. Oh, I need to make it cubic first, sorry, that's my fault. So I've made it cubic, it's front only. Actually, I need to make it flat, don't I, because I don't want it coming the other side. So it should be 1077 by 292, which means it's going to be absolutely huge. Then what I can do, using the cube, using the texture, and using this, okay, I can move it around and rotate it so that it is the right way round. Ooh, okay, maybe I do need to swap it. So let's have a squidge then. So it's that direction. There we go. So we need to scale it. Ooh, bear with me a second. So definitely rotate it so it's the right way round. Although, as you can see, that is not the right way round. So let's try 1077. There we go, by 292. And then, using the tag, if I nip a couple of percentages off, okay, we can see where it is. I'm also going to untick tile because I don't want more than one of them. And then I just need to marry this up so that it fits on top. Okay, so quick flip of the rotation. So it's 180, there we go. Maybe I will make that 9% and 9% so that it fits much better on that for me. Okay, there we go, and I have my lovely Cinema 4D logo on that. To make life really easy for me, I can just copy and drag that to the other cube where I want it on the back. Now its size is slightly different, so again I can just use its length percentages to adjust that till it fits. Okay, maybe just a smidgen more, or maybe I just need to shrink it a tad more as well. So 6.5, 6.5, there we go. And I have my nice Cinema 4D by Maxon logo up the top there, looking nice and swanky. Okay, I've got another couple of logos as well that I want to add, so I'm going to add another new material. Okay, and then I'm going to go and search for it, and this time it is the Maxon logo. There we go. Yes, create copy. And again, I'm going to add that this time to the symmetry object. Okay, but I'm going to need to make the symmetry object for one of them editable, because otherwise you're about to see what happens. That's the cube. Those polygons that I had selected earlier are still in my memory, which is nice. So if I drag and drop that to there, I get the Maxon Nemetschek logo on that side, but as you can see, it's backwards on the other. Okay, so, I mean, modelling automatically flip will not give me anything that I want it to do, sadly. It doesn't really work. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to take that out and then make it editable. Okay, so I can make the whole symmetry object editable, which means that I've now got access to the two cubes. And then I can separate it out and I can flip the texture round. So bear with me a second, and that's what we will do. So I can get rid of that texture, which we don't need. You can make it cubic, and there we go. It will add that in that sort of fashion, and then I can marry it up. You could separate these two objects completely out, which would be another way of doing it. So let's marry this up first. So I'm going to just adjust this by eye so that it fits what it is I need to edit. So there we go. So there we go. Just going to shrink it a little bit more in height and then move it down. So again, hopefully someone would have a design, and what you would normally do, oh hello, that's interesting on that side. What you would normally do is have some form of graphic that's made for you that would allow you to wrap that round. At the moment I'm just using some logos that I have, you know, around, as it were. So okay, we'll view it from one angle. Again, you could make it editable, or maybe we should, you know, we could fix it so I could flatten it out, or you could do, so look, we need another texture on there as well, so I'm going to command drag that down. Okay, so that's still nice and white. Yeah, let's separate it out, let's do it properly. So what I'm going to do, as that one's already selected, I'm just going to U and Y, which will allow me to grow the selection to make sure that I have all of the polygons of that particular part. Okay, so that's all of that one, and I'm going to right click, okay, and then I am going to split. And that split gives me an entirely separate copy. So there's one that's got two of them in, which is the original, and the split gives me the second. So what I can do is go to the original, select the polygons that I have selected and press delete, which means I now have one that's one and one that's the other. So I can adjust that texture if I want to make it a little bit better. Okay, so maybe I will go back to UV mapping and it will work that way. I'm going to delete that. Let's look at those cubes. Let's look at those polygons. Okay, and then I'm going to drag and drop that there. And it's backwards, so. Okay, but what we can do is we've got its length at 100%. If I just stick a minus in front of that and press enter, it will reverse it for me. Okay, and there we go. We have our lovely little stand. Okay, so if I just do a quick render of that, there we go, we can see that we've got our textures in there, we've got some things, we've got our logos, it's not too bad. Again, you may want to, sort of adjust those, heights of those things. Maybe I can, if I look at that and then go to ground shading, okay, we can see that the logo size is slightly different on those two. So let's have an adaptation there just by adjusting its offsets a bit. Okay. Oh dear, didn't mean to do that at all. There we go. Okay. Again, you would have properly designed logos that would be designed to fit those. I'm just making use of some nice Maxon and Cinema 4D logos that I have lying around. Now, if you have our content browser as well, you will be able to get access to some of the other things that will make this much easier to look at. So I'm going to go to my content browser and I'm going to search for TV. There we go, and I'm going to create a flat screen TV, and then I'm going to put that in my world. So just going to the objects, looking at the stuff I don't need, which is the power cable and stand, and then I'm going to rotate that around, so it's 90 degrees, and then I'm going to use my side views to marry them up so that I've got some nice views. So let's just have a look there. That's not too bad. So if I said that was minus 200 and then its Z position is minus 200 so that I know everything is going to be nice in the right sort of sizes. Why is that? Because I'm not on object mode, am I? I'm having a bit of a bad day today, aren't I? It's quite hot here at the moment, so there we go. Maybe I don't want it that far over, maybe I want it there, 175. So I'm a little bit doolally. And then I'm going to create another copy, okay, and I'm going to do that easily with an instance object. So with my object selected, click and drag an instance, and then I'm going to just get rid of the minuses from there, and press enter, and boom, it appears. Although I have a feeling I didn't want to get rid of it on the z-axis. Oh no, I did want to get rid of it on the z-axis. It's the x-axis I didn't want to do. There we go. So I now have my two screens, okay, looking quite nice. I've got some, let's put some chairs in there as well. Okay, let's have a look. So there we go, nice little exhibition stand officey chair. I'm just going to manoeuvre that to where I need it to be in the corner of this little desk. And again, to save myself some little processing power, I'm going to create an instance, and then I'm going to put that over there. And I'm not going to make this one symmetrical, I'm going to make it look like, you know, someone's just put that chair out the back. Okay, and just want to check that they've not gone below the floor, and they haven't, so that's awesome. So there we have our nice little exhibition stand there, looking all nice and pretty. And now if I render it, okay, it doesn't look too bad, but what I would also do, as I like doing, is adding in a physical sky, because that will give me some incredibly nice lighting. Okay, and again, you can adjust its time of day and so on and so forth. I don't want to see it, however, so I'm going to use a compositing tag so that it is not seen by the camera, and then do a render, and you'll see that we get a nicer sort of lighting effect. Okay, but I want to add some of my own internal lighting, and that can be done a few different ways. So you can create yourself some spotlights. Okay, because they're probably going to be made through, you know, some downlighters under the top. So move that down, and then again use your side and front views to just make sure that you know where these lights are going to get made. Okay, where the main sort of things are going to be. Again, you might want to create yourself some light fittings depending on what you're intending on having in your scene. You know, you can choose the brightness of this. I'm going to add some hard shadows from these to give it a little bit more realism. Okay, and then render again and see what we think. Okay, so you've got some downlights there. Maybe I will just rotate them a bit and move them a tad further back. So, I mean, it wouldn't ever be a good idea to have lights, you know, pointing down at your television screens, but, you know, you can see that we get this nice sort of lighting effect. Okay, although I think they may need to increase the brightness a bit, unless, of course, I've moved them into the ceiling, which I probably have done. So just move them down. There we go, let's try that again. There we go. Helps if you don't put the lights in the ceiling, really, doesn't it? Okay, that's not too bad. And then what I'm going to do is, I've often seen some of these nice display stands, they have these lovely neon lights. So I'm going to show you how you can create some nice and quick neon lights, or the effects of some nice neon lights. So I'm just going to hide those chairs because they take an awful lot of processing power, as do the TVs. There we go, that's a bit quicker. So now what I want to do is have a look where I want these lights to be, and I want them sort of like so that we've maybe got on the inside here. So where are my cubes? So there they go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create myself my neon light texture, as it were, because that's the easiest way of doing it. So turn off reflectance, turn off colour, I'm going to turn on luminance, and then I'm going to make it blue. Okay, and then I'm going to whack the brightness up by about 500. Okay, it's going to make it incredibly bright. And then I need to select where it is I want this to go. So using my polygons, okay, I'm going to go to this cube, and then I'm going to select those polygons underneath. I know I've missed a few and I've got some more I didn't need. Okay, so Command click those to get rid of them, and then I'm going to drag and drop that blue material to it. Then I'm going to need to do the same to the other side. Ooh, missed. Oh, missed again. Okay, and then boom, to get rid of those. Blue onto that. And then I'm going to have to get these as well. So, it's entirely up to you where you want them. So maybe I just want them along the top before it starts to bend. Actually, if I select both of those, I can get all of them at once. That's what I like about Cinema 4D. If you've got multiple objects selected in polygon mode, you can select multiple objects as polygons all at once. And then, ooh. Okay, so we've got the curvature off on all of them, and then drag and drop the blue, and that puts that on all of our elements. So now if I render, we're probably not going to see much of a difference. Nope, didn't think we would. So what we're going to need to do is add, as everybody knows with me, some global illumination. Okay, so global illumination in, I'm going to add some ambient occlusion in as well, just to give it a little bit of texture, and then let's have a nice render and see what that's going to look like. Okay, not bad. I need to add the white texture to this because it's being overridden by the blue from the inside. So I am just going to command drag that. Ooh, let's get rid of the blue. Command drag that to the other two to ensure that it's all done. But that, I thought that looked quite nice. So I shall just click render once again, and we shall see the result of our work. Okay, no blue coming through, so I'm going to move those tags. Told you I'm not having a good day today, and I'm going to make sure that they are first, because then that would then have the blue underneath. So, third time lucky. Okay, nearly there. So we've got a few little hiccups with those cubes, so I'm just going to lower those down so that they are not clipping inside there. Okay, let's have a look at the side view to make sure. There we go, they're going to be below. Maybe I can just adjust those ever so slightly so they marry up a bit better. And that should be that done. Okay, so one final time then. Okay, and there we have it. Well, I hope that was a useful tutorial, and for those people that have asked about how I would do an exhibition stand of some sort, I hope this has given you some tips and some tricks on how you can get some nice interesting designs, some curvature, and how you can adjust and deal with textures that may not behave themselves sometimes as well. Okay, I am Matt from Maxon UK, and I will catch you next time.